Hello, hello. The topic of today's lesson is to divide by a fraction. Now, let's recall. Last week, we started discussion of what it's like to divide fractions. Divide fractions by a whole number. Today, we're going to take a look at how to divide fraction by another fraction, which is very similar. Very similar. So let's take a look at the word problem. We are starting on page 103. Page 103. Andrea bought 3 oranges. She cut each orange into halves. How many pieces of orange does she have now? Of course, there are 2 halves in one, there are 2 halves in another one, and there are 2 halves in the third one. Altogether, Andrea created 6 halves. In the language of mathematics, we would say 3 oranges divided into halves. Or in other words, how many times does half go into 3? And we know that half goes into 1 2 times and therefore into 3 6 times, just like this picture shows. And one more thing we're going to talk about today is what is it like to divide by fraction. So when we're dividing 3 into halves, it is the same as figuring out how many times a half, which is 2 parts, goes into 3 equals to 6. In other words, my friends, I would recommend the same thinking. To divide by a number means to multiply by its reciprocal. To multiply by its reciprocal. We discussed this last week. So 2 is a reciprocal of 1/2. 10 is a reciprocal of 1/10. 3/4 has a reciprocal of 4/3. As you see, we can think of 10 as 10 ones. 1 goes in the top, 10 goes in the bottom. And the reason is because numbers that are reciprocals when multiplied give us a product of 1. Numbers that are reciprocals when multiplied give us a product of 1. So 2 and 1/2 are reciprocals of each other, and we're going to be using reciprocals going forward. Next word problem. How many bricks weighing 1/4 pound each will have a total weight of 3 pounds? In other words, how many times 1/4 goes into 3 pounds? Well, we would say 3 divide into quarters. And how many quarters will it give us? Well, we know 1 whole gives us 4 quarters, therefore 3 wholes will give us 12 quarters. However, in the language of math, we would say it is the same as 3 multiplied by a reciprocal, which is 12. Reciprocal of 1/4 is in the way 4 ones, we just don't write the 1. Next word problem. How many pieces of ribbon, each 1/2 meter long, can be cut from a ribbon that's a total of 4 meters long? In other words, how many times does a half go into 4 meters? Well, we know 1/2 goes 8 times into 4. However, I would like to write it using language of math. 4 meters divided into half meter pieces is the same as 4 multiplied by a reciprocal of 1/2, which is 2, and of course there will be 8 pieces. Next page, we're on page 105. Divide 2 by 1/3. In other words, how many times 1/3 goes into 2 holes? How many times 1/3 goes into 2 holes? Well, based on this picture, we see it goes 6 times. But let's take a look at the language of math. For us, to divide into thirds is the same as to multiply by its reciprocal, which is 6 times. The answer is 6 times. Now, let's continue. Let's take a look at number 4. Divide and make up a word problem for this situation. Well, let's see. How many quarters are there in 1 apple? Well, we know 1 apple will have 4 quarters, right? 1 apple will have 4 quarters. Therefore, there are 4 quarters in one apple? Another question. Let me pick up a different color. Another question. How many 1/5 of a cup are there in 2 gallons of water? Okay, how many 1/5 of a cup? Maybe not 2 gallons, maybe in 2 buckets. We will have into 2 liters, right? So we have 2 liters and we want to split it into cups that are 1/5 liter capacity, which is actually the same as 200 milliliters. How many of such cups will we get from a 2-liter bucket, right? Let's make a bucket. Well, we know that 1/5 goes into 1 liter 5 times, therefore it will go into 2 liters 10 times altogether. Now, let's try this color, 10 times. In other words, to divide by a fraction or any number is the same as to multiply by its reciprocal. To divide by a fraction means to multiply by its reciprocal. Mathematically, it means the same thing. Now, let's solve the following examples at the bottom of page 105. We are going to focus only on this rectangle, only on this section. Very good. I'm so glad I got a nice box. All right, so let's go. 6 divided into 1/6 is the same as 6 times 6 ones. 8, which is 36 times. 8 divided into quarters. How many quarters will we get? Well, it's the same as 8 multiplied by reciprocal, which is 6 ones or 4 ones. So the answer is 32. 9 divided into 9s. Let's see, it's the same as 9 multiplied times 9 ones equals 81. And 5 split into quarters, it's the same as 5 multiplied by its reciprocal of 1/4, which is 4. I'm not even going to write 1, equals 20 times. So let's continue. The next step is let's divide a fraction by a fraction. Let's see how it works out. Divide 1/2 into quarters, okay, by 1/4. Well, how many quarters are there in 1/2? To divide by a fraction means to multiply by its reciprocal. And we will have, my friends, please do not forget that we simplify before we multiply, and we would do like this. Always recommend this. And the answer is simply 2. There are 2 quarters in 1/2. Dividing by a quarter is the same as multiplying by a reciprocal. Dividing by a quarter, this is so important for us to internalize and practice. And of course, 4 is a reciprocal of 1/4. Why? Well, think of 4 as just 4 ones. We just never write the 1 underneath. Let's take a look at number 7. A beaker has 4/5 of a liter of solution. Look at this 4/5. It's right here. It's right here, right? This is the volume, 4/5, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 equal parts is the same as 4/5 of a liter, okay? Now, all of this liquid is going to be poured into test cubes. 1, 2, 3. Each test cube can only hold 1/10 of a liter, 1/10 of a liter, 1/10 of a liter. That's the capacity. How many test cubes will we need? How many test cubes will we need? Well, let's take 4/5 of a liter and let's see how many times 1/10 goes into 4/5. Again, same concept. To divide by a fraction is the same as to multiply by the reciprocal. So 4/5 times 10 over 1. Let's go simplify before we multiply. This down reduces to 1. This stays as 2. 8 beakers. We will have 8 beakers. 8 beakers will be required to pour all of the solution. Next, page 107. Page 107. I'm going to label it right here. We're in page 107. Okay, divide fraction by fraction. 2/3 divided into by 1/3 is the same as 2/3 times 3. And 3 cancels with 3. We end up with 2 pieces. 2/3 divided by 1/6 is the same as, I'm just going to keep using my rainbows, is the same as 2/3 multiplied by 6 ones. And let's cancel out. Before we multiply, let's reduce our fraction. The result is 4. Next, again, we're only going to divide one out of the given boxes, just to save some time. Beautiful. Now, let's try this. 2/5 divided into pieces. How many times 1/10 goes into fifths? Well, let's see. Let's rewrite it first as multiplication by 10. And we know that it's going to go 10 and 5 will simplify to 2, and it will go 4 times. There are 4 tenths in 2/5. 5/6 divided into 1/6 pieces. It's the same as 5/6 multiplied by 6. And of course, the answer is just 5. 6 will cancel out, simplify. 3/8 divided into quarters. Let's rewrite it as multiplication, right? We understand that to divide by a quarter is find out how many times that quarter goes into our number. 3/8, and this reduces. This becomes 2. This turns into 1, and it becomes 3/2, which is 1 and 1/2. Okay, my friends, and the final page. Divide 3 by 3/4. How many times 3/4 goes into 3? Well, again, same concept. Divide by 3/4 is the same as to multiply by a reciprocal. 3 will cancel out, and we will have 4. Right? This is 1. It's going to be right here. And maybe let's pick up another. This quarter will be, let's make it right here. And let's make this 3/4 will be the third. And finally, there will be 1/4 remaining from them all. And which color should I pick? Let's pick purple. This is the purple quarter. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and that will all gather right here. We will have 4 3/4. Okay? Now, dividing by 3/4 is the same as multiplying by 4/3 because these two numbers are reciprocals. The definition of reciprocal, 4/3 times 3/4. When you have two reciprocals and you multiply, everything cancels down and you have just one whole.